everybody. Happy Wednesday evening, and welcome to the Porch. It is a Volquest baseball podcast. Of course, it's always presented by our friends over at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. If you got a problem, let them find a solution for you. That's TN Trial Lawyers, specializing in criminal defense and other such matters. If you have the need, pick up the phone today for a free consultation at 423-245-4185 or visit SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com for more information. We got a lot of stuff to get into here today. I'm going to talk about the latest with Christian Moore and his record-setting season, my thoughts on the designated hitter, starting pitchers for this weekend, both for Tennessee and for South Carolina, and A.J. Russell updates. Look at the Gamecocks in depth a little bit. And here at the top, I do want to mention, of course, we'll get Lupcius here in about 15 minutes as well, the VFL. He's going to help preview the Gamecock series and what he saw from Tennessee this past weekend. All that coming up here over the next 40 to 45 minutes or so. Here at the top, though, I do want to mention that, hey, the final week of the regular season, final weekend of the regular season, Thursday through Saturday bouts, and though Tennessee briefly was a tie with Kentucky atop the SEC East standings and the SEC standings overall after Game 2 heading into Sunday's Game 3 action last weekend, Tennessee enters the final weekend of play tied with Arkansas at 19-8 conference record, trailing Kentucky by a game for the SEC lead. So Tennessee trails Kentucky by a game for the SEC lead, the SEC East lead, and of course is tied with Arkansas. How the tiebreakers would work if so there was a tie there towards at the end of the regular season, at the end of this weekend. If Tennessee and Kentucky entered the regular season with a tie, the Vols would own the tiebreaker, as they took the series 2 games to 3 earlier this year. If Tennessee and Arkansas ended in a tie, to the best of my understanding, for what I've been told, the tiebreaker would go to the team with a better record against the highest seeded common opponent, which would be Kentucky. When we say seeded, we mean for the SEC tournament. That would be Kentucky. Tennessee would own that tiebreaker. If all 3 teams ended in a 3-way tie, the tiebreaker would go to the squad with the best record against the highest seeded team all 3 have played, which would likely be South Carolina at the end of the weekend. If Tennessee and Texas A&M somehow ended in a tie, the tiebreaker would be a record against South Carolina. Both played Georgia, which will likely finish as the higher seed. Both went 2-1 against the Bulldogs, so the tiebreaker would continue to the next highest seed. A&M went 2-1 against the Gamecocks. If Tennessee, Kentucky, and Texas A&M ended in a tie, the tiebreaker would likely fall to the record against Georgia. Kentucky owns that tiebreaker, having swept the Bulldogs, even though Tennessee won that series 2-1 as well. So there's a lot of different scenarios. Fact of the matter is, play what's in front of you, right? You got a game Thursday, play Thursday, come back, regroup, play Friday, and then so on and so forth, and let the chips fall where they may towards the end, and we'll keep you updated on the tiebreaker scenarios. I did publish an article last week, I guess it was Saturday night, when Tennessee was tied with Kentucky for the SEC lead. You can go back and look at that from reference. I'll probably pull that and write something else maybe going into the weekend sometime tomorrow on tiebreaker scenarios. But fact of the matter is, Tennessee enters the weekend a game back at the SEC despite being ranked number 1 in the country. This league is just so wild. But a chance to win an SEC tournament potentially. I think Tennessee, from what I've been told and to my understanding, you get at least one win against South Carolina. At worst, you're going to be the 3 seed in the SEC tournament next weekend in Hoover, which is unfortunate if you're the 3 seed because you play at 9:30 a.m. local time on Wednesday. So, a couple weeks ago when I booked my hotel, I booked it for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and if they played on this Sunday, I'd figure it out. Looks like I'm going to have to go back and book a hotel room for Tuesday nights because I don't want to take the chance of getting caught in traffic trying to make the early morning commute over to Hoover. So that's not your problem. That's my problem. Nonetheless, still a lot to play for. Tennessee has won 8 series in a row. South Carolina sputtering a little bit. They have won 3 of their last 4 series, but they were swept last weekend at home to Georgia, who's really hot right now. But I'll get into more South Carolina here in a moment. Christian Moore. He just continues to have this incredible season, obviously. Really, really awesome stuff from Christian Moore. On Tuesday's game against Belmont, Christian Moore tied Sonny Cortez for the single-season home run record with 24. So he's currently tied there. His next home run, of course, Christian Moore would be the sole possession holder the single season home run record for Tennessee at 25 and beyond, right? But right now he's tied at 24 with Sonny Cortez in 1998. It came on Tuesday night, 3-1 count. The ball traveled 351. It was a wall scraper there in right center. More right field than right center, actually. Just over the right field wall, 101 miles per hour exit velo. And so when you look at the leaderboard for single season home runs, it is 24 for Moore and Cortez. Trey Lipscomb, who's with the Washington Nationals right now, is in third with 22. He did that back in 2022. Cody Hahn is also tied in third with 22 home runs. He did that in 2009. Chris Burke in 2001. Todd Helton in 1995. Chuck Barcliffe in 1980. All sit tied for fifth with 20 home runs in a single season. Luke Lupcius had 19 in 2022. Our good buddy we'll talk to you here in a moment. That's eighth best. Griffin Merritt last year in 23. Jordan Beck in 22. Joel Ortega in 22. And Doug Hecker in 1991. All tied for ninth in program history with 18 home runs in a single season. Of course, Christian Moore obviously has the record for career home runs for Tennessee, and that just continues to climb. He's at 51 now, so he leads teammate Blake Burke by 6. Blake's at 45, and of course, Luke Lipsius held the record coming into the year, who again we'll talk to in a moment, at 40. So Christian Moore just continues to have a fantastic season, and I'm really, really happy for all the success that he's having. Designated hitter thoughts. I kind of wrote about this in the 3-2-1. It's being treated like an opener, which I guess I don't hate, but in the same sense, it's like you're putting a lot of pressure on those guys to go up there, and if they strike out or have bad ABs for their first time up, they might not get a second. And so I'm not the biggest fan of that, but also I love he's not reluctant to just say, hey, that's not working, let's put somebody else in, especially in big situations. But some of the moves didn't make sense. Bargo got the starts in game 1 at Vanderbilt, 0-for-2, 2 strikeouts, was lifted. Brad Key Lowry, I believe, got an AB there. And then it was Cannon Peoples who came on and had the 2-run home run in the 8th inning. And so it was like, all right, well, it's not like Cannon Peoples has arrived, but reward the guy for doing well and see what he can do with 4 ABs the next day. No, he didn't. It was Reese Chapman that got the start, and then, of course, he was lifted for Cannon Peoples that came in 0-for-2, but had a couple of walks and scored a run as well, so it was all right. And then, all right, well, Cannon Peoples still looking the best of any of the options right now. Maybe he'll get the start of DH in game 3. Nope. It was Robin Villeneuve, who has not looked good at the plate for, well over a month, and he walked in his first AB, but then struck out on 3 straight fastballs, 2 elevated in the zone, and then you went to Peoples shortly thereafter, and his at-bat on Sunday, he struck out on 3 straight pitches as well, so it wasn't good as well. My point is, whether it's Bargo, Chapman, Lowry, Villeneuve, Peebles, nobody's got a solution right now. And Barco was doing really, really well when he was getting everyday at-bats playing third for Billy Amick, but he hasn't looked the same since. Colby Backus still really isn't getting a true shot. He got the start at DH, homered, started that 3 home run inning there in the bottom of the 6th inning where Tennessee went and took down Belmont in run rule fashion on Tuesday. He got a start at Florida, but only got 1 AB, so he really hasn't gotten a true look yet. So I'm fine with, and again, I'm not trying to diminish it or whatever. I see so many posts on the board, and that's fine, but like you're saying, well, what more can he do? He's sitting over 400 or yada. So much of that comes in midweeks, guys, and I think he's got 3 ABs in SEC play, and it's a little bit of a different sample size, trust me. But that doesn't mean, given where the DH spot is right now, that he doesn't deserve a look. I'd be fine if Backus got to start at DH. I really would. I was fine when he got to start at DH on Friday or on Saturday in Gainesville a couple weeks ago. But it looks like that's not really been the case so far. So Peebles has looked the best out of any of them. And as long as Charlie Taylor's active, then I have no issue with Cannon Peebles being the DH, because if you're the DH and you have to go in and play in the field, then you lose that spot in the order and the pitcher has to hit. So you don't want to be like that. So that's tough why Peebles maybe hasn't DH'd an awful lot. But if Charlie Taylor's active like he was last week, in the series at Vanderbilt, then I have no issue with Cannon Peebles being the DH. So I'm intrigued to see how they want to work that out. Some of the moves last weekend didn't really make sense to me, but again, I'm not getting paid $1.5 million to coach baseball or whatever it is that Tony's making. He knows he's forgotten more baseball than I'll ever know. But I'm intrigued to see kind of how they treat that spot right now. I like Reese Chapman. I think he's the best of the bunch, but he's going through it right now. Even though he homered last night or on Tuesday, which was awesome to see, maybe that'll spark him into the weekend, and maybe he can get something going. But overall, he hadn't looked great. Robin's not looked great. Bargo's not looked great at the plate here lately. I still don't really understand giving Brad Lowry opportunities, but that's just me. We'll see if maybe Reese can get it going, or if they go with Peebles, or maybe Backus gets a shot. At this point, you have absolutely no answer. So you just got to continue to try to find that answer. It just makes it glaring whenever you have that game where the DH is giving you absolutely nothing. And Stark is having a game where he gives you nothing at the plate, and then like Dean Curley or whoever's hitting seventh is giving you nothing. If it all combines together, it just makes it look that much worse. But we know, I mean, we're sitting here, Stark's gone off. Stark had a 2-hit game and scored a couple of runs, and even when Stark doesn't get a hit, a lot of times he's getting on base. He's been super productive. I mean, listen, he's never going to win a Silver Slugger award, okay? But Cal Stark, with the bat in his hands this year, has been really, really good. He's your catcher. I mean, obviously we know how vital he is behind the plate, but there's been some games where he's given you some production at the bottom of the order, and even if they're not hits, he's been getting on base. And Hunter Ensley's starting to come around a little bit, and they've actually been flip-flopping Dean Curley and Hunter Ensley a little bit the last couple of weeks. I wrote about Dean Curley. He was pulling his weight. He's hitting 309 in SEC play. He's doing fine, but he hadn't hit a home run in like well over a month, which is kind of interesting. But I'll be intrigued to see what the designated hitter slots look like this weekend in the series, the regular season finale against South Carolina. Starting pitchers for Tennessee and South Carolina this weekend. It'll be the same for Tennessee. They'll open with Chris Stamos on Thursday. They'll go with Drew Beam on Friday, and then Xander Seacrest will open on Sunday. For South Carolina, it's going to be Ty Good, who's making his second SEC start, but like his 22nd appearance overall in the season. He's been in that A.J. Causey role a little bit, where he'll come in and be the longer leg of that piggyback. So because Roman Kimball, who's kind of been acting as an opener for South Carolina, either on Fridays or Saturdays, he's gotten blown up the last couple of times he's been out there. They're just going to go ahead and start Ty Good. So Ty Good, a righty, 5-1 on the year, 3.21 ERA, who's primarily been an A.J. Causey piggyback guy, is going to get the ball first on Thursday. And then it's TBA for South Carolina. I mentioned Roman Kimball, who's been used as an opener, 2-2, a 5.86 ERA. He's gotten blown out of the water the last couple of starts for him, and he's only logged 27 innings and 2/3 on the year. Eli Jones is probably their most complete starter. In their rotation, I would kind of equate him to a Drew Beam, if you will. I think Beam's better for sure, but in terms of he's been the consistent, he's made a start every single weekend, whether it's Friday night, Saturday night, or whatever. He's 3-4, 5.37 ERA. He was the opening day starter, but he slid back to the number 2 role here lately. He leads the team with 58 innings and 2/3, 48 strikeouts, 18 walks. Opponents are hitting over 300 against him, though, and he's given up 14 doubles on the year. So opportunities for extra bases against Eli Jones. A guy who I believe is going to stay in the starting rotation. He moved there last weekend, and though they got swept by Georgia and got beat pretty handedly against the Bulldogs in Game 3 when he made a start, Garrett Gainey pitched really well. He went in the 6th inning, he allowed 2 runs off 3 hits, 7 strikeouts, and 1 walk against the Bulldogs last week. So he stretched out, it looks like. 0-2 on the year, 3.05 ERA. That was his first start of the season, but he's been used 20 times from the bullpen. He's pretty much been the best bullpen arm for the Gamecocks this year, but they have no choice, and they got to put him in the rotation. So I'd expect to see Garrett Gainey at some point pitch, Eli Jones, and then, of course, Ty Good going to be your starter on Thursday nights. Overall, South Carolina, they rank 8th in the league with a 4.87 ERA, 9th in strikeouts, 11th in walks, giving up the 11th most walks. Pitching staff is not very good, and it'd be great for Tennessee's offense to really put it to them and to kind of get back on track heading into the SEC tournament. While I'm talking about South Carolina's pitching, I'll just go ahead and talk about the offense before we get to Luke. I've got a couple more things I want to get to, but offense is solid. It's not great. It's not horrible. It's got the 9th best average. That's not great at 277 among SEC teams. 8th best slugging percentage. 9th most hits. They do tally the 4th best on base percentage. They scored the 4th most runs. They've driven in the 5th most runs. They've walked the 5th most times in the league and also struck out. They've walked and struck out the 2nd most times in the league. So extended at bats, patient at times, overly aggressive at times, but patient nonetheless. They've walked 333 times. They've struck out 517 times, both second most in the league this year. So I thought that stat was pretty interesting. Ethan Petrie's a guy. He's the power source. Really good player, hitting 307, 19 home runs, 50 ribbies. He's a good player. Cole Messina, 298 average, so hitting right around 300, 15 bombs, team best 52 ribbies. He's a good player. Kennedy Jones plays the corner outfield spots, hitting 300 on the year, 8 home runs, 46 ribbies. So on and so forth. But those are the main guys, along with Blake Jackson, who leads the team with a 310 batting average and has stolen 15 bags this year. Got a couple of guys who have stolen some bags this year. 15 stolen bases for Blake Jackson. Dylan Brewer has stolen 12. He's stolen 12 bags as well. Somebody else. There's one other player that has double digits steals too. But South Carolina team that needs a win. They are 13 and 14 in SEC play, needs at least one more win to really feel like they're safe to get in the postseason. So, of course, they've a little bit of desperation there, trying to find at least one win in 3 tries heading into the SEC tournament. They're sitting in 4th in the SEC East standings right now, and, of course, it'll be a challenge here at Lindsey Nelson Stadium this weekend, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, 6:30, and 1 o'clock in the afternoon. All games streamed on the SEC network. So that is a look at South Carolina. And then finally, before we get to A.J. Russell, I do want to give a quick note on A.J. Russell. Obviously, he did not pitch in Tuesday's game. If I were Frank Anderson or Tony Vitello, I would have thrown him out there because it is a no-pressure situation. I would have been like, no matter what, you're getting the 3rd inning. You're going to get 15, 20 pitches, whatever it takes. And that's, I would have had him on a schedule there to kind of ease him back. But they wanted him to throw instead of bullpen that day, so that's what he did. Whenever we were showing up to the ballpark, talked to somebody that said that he was in the weight room lifting, so at that point knew that he wasn't going to throw. Very much on A.J. Russell watch. Fully anticipate him being on the active roster this weekend. Doesn't mean that he will pitch, but in conversations with some people last night that are very, very much in the know, and I'll leave it at that. And I put this on the board Tuesday night, in a perfect world, they would love A.J. Russell to get at least 2 appearances before regional play. And of those 2 appearances, at least 1 start in regional play. Now, it would be an open, 2 innings max or whatever, but they would like to get him out there once out of the bullpen, once in a starting position, twice, before regional play. That's in a perfect world. Now, it's day-to-day. At the time of this recording, I need to follow up, so I didn't have a chance to follow up before I recorded this to see how he's feeling after that bullpen from Tuesday. But if all goes well, and if he does pitch this weekend, been told that it'll be on Saturday. Okay, it would be on Saturday, likely coming in behind Xander Sechrest or something. Same rotation for Tennessee, but we'll have to see, and I'll check on that as we get closer to game time to see how A.J. Russell's feeling from this bullpen. But by my calculations, that's his 3rd bullpen. He pitched to Tennessee hitters. They call it stand-ins. When they just get in the box, they don't swing the bat, but they just get in the box, and so you're locating. He's done that. Tony Vitello mentioned on Tuesday that they would like to see him live against Tennessee hitters, and maybe that'll happen before Saturday, or maybe it won't. I don't know. But you can, as long as he's feeling good and he's looking good, you can, for a guy like him, you can do that in a game. So in a perfect world, 2 appearances before regional play, 1 out of the bullpen, 1 in a starting role. So if A.J. Russell does pitch this weekend, it'll be sometime on Saturday, and we'll try to get that, and I'll make sure that he's on the active roster before the series begins on Thursday. But since Tennessee's guaranteed 2 games in the SEC tournament in Hoover, A.J. Russell will likely start one of those games, open one of those games, pitch 2 innings or whatever. That's kind of the thought process right now. So that's the latest update on A.J. Russell. Again, we've been on A.J. Russell watch for about a week now, when it's been realistic that he could be in a game. And, hopefully he gets back in there and he gets, his feet wet a little bit and he starts to feel good, and he can be a guy that Tennessee can utilize in postseason baseball because, of course, it's all hands on deck at that point. And again, I've said this a million times. I'll continue to reiterate it if you haven't heard before. Don't expect him, when he's back full-fledged, ready to roll, that he's going to go 7 innings and start on a Friday night or start game 1 of regional or whatever. Short stints, okay? Short stints. 2 innings, 3 innings here, whatever. They'll build him up a little bit. His bullpen on Tuesday was told it was about 45 pitches, so they'll build him up a little bit. But, going 100 pitches, striking out 10 in 4 innings and a third, like he did against Texas Tech or whatever. Maybe it wasn't 100 pitches, but, just kind of ease up on that a little bit. Short stints, they'll pick and choose, open, close, maybe middle relief, high leverage situations. But what a dynamic healthy arm that you'll have at your disposal when he does make his return complete. And really, really looking forward to that and rooting for him because I like to see good baseball players play, and he's a good baseball player, and I know you guys are with me in that regard. What does Luke Lupcius think about the South Carolina Gamecocks? Tennessee and South Carolina coming up this week. What did Luke think about the series win at Vanderbilt? All that and more coming up with former Tennessee first baseman Luke Lupcius as we'll take a short break, and we'll come back, and we'll talk with him here on The Porch, a Volquest baseball podcast. Couldn't do The Porch without my friends Spivey, King, and Spivey, LLP. Matthew A. Spivey, J. Matt King, Richard A. Spivey. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T and trial lawyers specializing in criminal defense, family law, and personal injury. Examples of which can be DUI, assault, divorce, custody, alimony, personal injury, such as car wrecks, accidents, all that and more. They have over 80 years of combined experience. Spivey, King, and Spivey LLP provides representation throughout state and federal courts in Northeast Tennessee. The firm has a vast amount of trial experience. This practice has been in place for 43 years with this partnership since 2012, also having partners who are energized for today's modern legal demands. Practicing primarily in Northeast Tennessee, the Tri-Cities of Sullivan County, as well as Hawkins County, Washington County, and surrounding areas. Whether you've been injured in a car accident, need a divorce, help with custody of your children, or have been accused of a crime, Spivey, King, and Spivey LLP is here to help you. Go see him in person at 142 Cherokee Street in Kingsport, Tennessee. Pick up the phone for a free consultation. You can call 423-245-4185. And if you're watching on the website or on YouTube, that number is at the bottom of the screen. It's on the rolling ticker. And, of course, you can go visit them online at SpiveyKingandSpiveyLLP.com. Spivey, King, and Spivey, LLP. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. That is TN Trial Lawyers. Hey, Luke, man, you blink and it's gone, man. Regular season is come and gone. Last regular season series coming up at Lindsey Nelson Stadium this weekend, Tennessee and South Carolina. Did it always fly by for you as a player, or I guess it depends on how you were doing, I guess. Maybe if you were struggling, I feel like it was just inching along, but it just always feels like it flies by.
Definitely now that I'm a fan and I've been a fan for 2 years, it feels like it goes by way faster than when you're in it. The way that I like to describe it when I was in it is the weeks are really long, the days are long, but the weeks are short, and you can even multiply that. Weeks are long, months are short. So it's like, while you're in it, it's like, holy moly, this is just dragging on. You're playing so many games, you're practicing so much, lifting all this stuff, doing school. So time flies by, but then like you look back and it's gone. But I feel like as a fan, it goes by even quicker because I can't even I feel like it was yesterday we were talking about, Georgia and Ole Miss and these early series, but here we are. Last weekend of the season, super exciting time for the Vols and super exciting time for the SEC in general, just because we got that, top 3 race for the number 1 spot. A lot of stuff could happen, changes. If let's say we sweep, Kentucky only wins 2 out of 3, we jump them. What does Arkansas do? Blah, blah, blah. But you're really just playing to not be the number 3 seed because they play the 10:30 game on that second round of the SEC tournament. I tell you what, those morning games, they do stink. But it's a great season. Can't believe it's coming to an end. And I like where we're at right now, especially after last night's win.
Yeah, and it's like you can't play for a 2 seed because at least for the SEC tournament, it's the East, the West, 1, 2, and then so like if Tennessee stays put at 3. And you're right, you're playing that morning game. I want to ask you about that here in a moment, but just to kind of put things in perspective of how quickly this season's gone, because I'm right there with you. Like, Blake broke your record, it feels like yesterday. Mm-hmm. And then Simo went ahead of Burke at Kentucky, and since that game at Kentucky, he's hit 11 home runs.
Yeah.
I mean, what? Or maybe not, or whatever the case is. Yeah, they were tied there for a minute, but he's hit like 10 home runs in the span of 3 or 4 weeks. Just incredible. And so it truly does fly by a little bit. What did you like about Tennessee and Vanderbilt? Of course, it was an 8-4 win in game 1, couple 2-run home runs there in the 8th inning that allowed Tennessee to pull away. 7-6 win on Saturday where Tennessee had to hold on. And then, of course, Sunday was a little bit of a downer. If not for Dylan Dreiling, Tennessee was no hit, but still a series win on the road in this league is tough to do, and Tennessee has now won 8 straight series.
I'm going to touch on Simo. It's funny because at the beginning of the season, it was like light chatter of, he's probably going to be the record holder. And then, when he caught up to Burke, it was like, okay, he's probably going to be the record holder. And now he's like 5 ahead or something?
6.
At 6 ahead. And not only that, he is now tied for the single season home run lead. So by the end of the season, he will be the career and single season king, which is just really cool to say, and it sucks that it doesn't suck, but you got Todd Helton that played at Tennessee. So he's never really going to be the best player to come out of Tennessee, but the way he's putting together this season, it's something special. And so we're all witness to something really great. He's going to have a long career, but as far as this weekend, I'll call it a learning weekend because I wasn't neither happy nor sad. It's just one of those things where you expect a little bit more from the offense. I think the pitching staff did what they needed to do, but again, we see it's not even a struggle. It's just like a lull. And what our offense has been doing and I think it's because they set the bar so high. We're putting up 10 runs a game, hitting 5 home runs a game, and you just expect to see that every series. But that's why I want to call it a learning series because also now we got the chance to on Saturday battle back from being behind. On Friday we got to keep a close one and then pull away, and then of course on Sunday we just got bested by a really good arm. I think he had he was served a suspension for some substance at some point. Coming back from that, whatever, his fastball looked really jumpy. Just one of those days we weren't hitting, like you said, we were no hit except for Dreiling, who had 3 hits, which he had a good weekend, the home run Friday. But it was a good series overall, good to see 2 out of 3, especially at Vandy. It's not too much of a harsh atmosphere besides the Whistler. Once you get past the Whistler, you're good to go. But yeah, really good series win in Nashville again against Vandy. I think it's 3 years in a row now that we have either won or swept Vandy or beat or swept Vandy. So we're keeping a good streak going. And of course, Simo dazzled. That home run he had on Saturday was one of the most impressive things I've ever seen. KT's home run on Friday was also one of the more impressive things I've seen. It's good. And then, bringing us into a really good Tuesday win where we did seem to dominate, a fairly decent Belmont team. So nothing but good going into the series. And it just proves that we can lose close or win close and come back when needed. So it had all good going into postseason.
Real quick before we go any further, do you happen to know who is in 8th place in the single season Tennessee home run record with 19 in 1 year?
I would assume that's me. I feel like you're serving that one up. Yeah,
you're in 8th place. Let's see here. You got Helton, Chuck Barclift, and Chris Burke, who are tied for I think 5th, right in front of you.
Nice.
Of course, you got Simo and Sonny Cortez at the top, and then you've got Lipscomb, Trey, and Cody Hahn tied for 3rd. So, you're at the top 10 there. So
there we go. Cool. Pretty good list. Top 10, and then number 3 now in career.
Yeah. And gosh, and again, Simo's just sprinting away from everybody. He's having some type of year. It's good to see. Speaking of Simo and one of the home runs, of course, he led off the series on Friday, which is cool to see. But that home run against Grayson Carter on Saturday, it was about 101, 102, a little high and in.
Yep.
And he just gets it out of the ballpark, man. I mean, kind of walk us through that home run swing and what went into that. And then KT's, and you correct me if I'm wrong, if memory serves me correct, that was more just strength, like forearm strength. It was a little bit outside. He just took it over that monster off the top. 2 very different looking home runs, both impressive, but Simo's was just incredible.
So, and we'll start with Simo's because not only did he hit a home run the way he did, which we'll get to, but he put up a really good at bat before that. I believe it was later in the count. He had worked the count a little bit. But again, this guy's throwing fuel and he gets one up and in, which to most hitters that is a strikeout, or at least a swing and a miss. But I don't know. He got the barrel to it. I guess it was a dead sky, but that just shows you the power of Simo and what he can do and why he is so impressive in doing what he's doing this season. He's getting barrels, 2 balls on pitches that really should not be a barrel at all. But then KT is more of, just a high heater, looked pretty down the middle, kept the hands inside and did what he does with that big frame. And I tell you what, I think it was still going up as it crossed the fence because it looked kind of low off the bat. And then you just see it like, holy moly, this thing's like not halfway, but like towards the back end of the building on top of it. So two very, very impressive swings from two very impressive hitters that are going to play for a while. But yeah, it's really fun to see when, especially late in the game when you kind of need it, because I think Simo's in the eighth ended up being the deciding run on Saturday. And then KT's, of course, it got us up by 2 or 3 or whatever it was. So it had good late homers as well.
Yeah, that was a Simo game. He was, I want to say, he was 3 for 5. He had 5 RBI. Had that home run that was huge.
Yeah.
A home run put Tennessee ahead, and I think somebody else scored on maybe a wild pitch that they all run together. But that Saturday game was a Simo game. He was incredible. When I asked you about Xander Seacrest, he had the game. I wrote about this earlier this week. Like, he had the game of his life against Georgia, against that offense where he went 6 innings, no runs, 7 strikeouts. That was forever ago. Since then, he's had 2 starts where it's been solid, but like 3 of 4 of the 6 starts since then, I think he worked into 3 one time, but mostly, 2, 2 and 2/3, somewhere around there. He's given up a home run in 5 of those 6 starts. It feels like he's not getting torched, but he's given up 1 long ball almost every single time he's out there. Tennessee's going to need Xander to eat up some innings in postseason play. That is for certain. He's going to get the start on Sunday. He will pitch so on and so forth. So how can Xander kind of, at this stage in the season, kind of maybe change something to maybe not give up as many meatballs, essentially, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, a pitcher like Xander, like any real pitcher that doesn't just blow it by you, is going to have to, for one, I do think the umpire plays a little bit into the success of pitchers like that. If you get an umpire that squeezes, they tend to not have as much success. You got an umpire that gives a little bit more off the plate, you do. But so for him, it's making his pitches. When he, gets behind, it's almost surely going to be a hard contact, just because, he's got good pitches, but there's nothing that's going to really, really blow you away. Where he does well is when he's landing his off speed, when he's mixing pitches well, and then he zips that heater by you, so you have to think about it. But when he's, if he's falling behind, if he's pitching predictably, which, that's kind of on Frank, then that's when you see him get barreled. But the good Xander you see is making his pitches, and then you also see a lot of swing and misses on heaters up. If you get, early innings swing and misses on heaters up, it's going to be a good day for Xander. But other than that, it's like you said, he's not doing horribly. He's just getting hit around a little bit. But again, he's one of those guys that's always produced when he's needed to. He's never really been shying away from, the big spots. He's gonna do what he does. We'll see hopefully longer outings here down the stretch, but I'm not super worried about him. And Snead's been doing real well as a cleanup guy after him, so it's fine for what we've been seeing.
Yeah, I mean, when you like Tennessee's got it's a magical year so far. We'll see how it ends, but I mean, of course, you've got Burke, who was great. Amic's been doing some things. KT's having a great year. Dylan's having a great year. But like when you think of the unsung heroes, I say Simo, of course, having a great year. Like Kirby is been huge for Tennessee this year. Xander, huge for Chris Stamos, huge for Tennessee this year. Causey, Snead, and speaking of Snead, everybody's like, man, got to start him. But you leave that option open. Like, again, you're at the end of the regular season. Xander's going to get the start on Sunday. It's already been announced. But like you leave that third spot open, like TBA or whatever, so you can do that, like with Snead. Like, say, like Snead, maybe they didn't, obviously, but maybe you say they wanted to start him on Sunday. But you call it TBD, TBA, that way that if you're in a spot on Saturday night, boy, you can bring him in there 2 pitches or 3 pitches, 2 outs, and you get a save. Incredible outing there from Nate Snead on Saturday to lock things down. Tying run at second, and then tying run was at third, stranded. And, I mean, that was huge. He was incredible this weekend. Pitched really well, 65 pitches, went about 4 innings and a third or whatever on Sunday. He continues to show that he's been a great offseason acquisition.
And what I want to point out that is so incredibly difficult is, and he's done it, I think it's like three weekends now or so, is where he does come in for those late inning relief appearances on Saturday and bounces back and still throws a gem on Sunday, which just, being a pitcher in college baseball, you don't see that a lot, especially to the extent that he does it. We saw it a lot with Kirby in 21 and even sometimes this year where he'll go, 1-2 on Saturday or Friday, whatever it is, and then 1-2 the next game, which that's fine because you're throwing, 30 pitches apiece. When you're throwing 10 pitches on Saturday and then you're going basically a start, we'll call it, on Sunday. That's so hard to do because you see the 10 pitches in the game, but what you don't see is the whole warm-up routine you have to do. You're throwing 30, 40 in the bullpen before. You have to get your arm hot. I'm sure he's getting hot, and in the 7th inning on Saturday. Like it's all these other things that's why you just don't have them do what they do. And so for him to be so successful doing that is what I think is the most impressive thing. And, it's why he's was a midseason stopper of the year award candidate, all this good stuff. Even though midseason was a long time ago, but he's doing really, really well. And that he has the absolute confidence in his stuff. He's been making his pitches. It's all been really good out of Snead.
Yeah, and like your ball to the wall there for those 3 to 10, whatever it is. Like he came in and he was pumping. He threw 3 pitches, and you're right. That's all we see. But you're down there and you're hot for 2 or 3 innings. You're ready to go. And I remember I asked. I think it might have been Kirby. It was either Xander or Kirby because they like to hang out with us media because I guess they're dorks and think we're cool.
Yeah, of course.
No, that's not it. But they're around a lot. And I asked one of them, and I was like, "How difficult is that for a pitcher?" And they're like, "It's tough. I mean, you are literally hot and ready to go." Yep. And then sometimes you don't get in, and so that'll affect you. That can affect you the next day potentially. So there's a lot that we don't see. And of course, you weren't a pitcher. Did you ever pitch in high school or anything?
Well, actually, fun fact. So high school, yes, I think like everyone pitched in high school basically. But sophomore year, I was not doing that well at hitting, and we were not having a bunch of lefties. So I threw like 2 bullpens for Tennessee. So it was never got in the game. I don't think there was even like a sniff of me getting in the game, but I did throw 2 bullpens. So that was pretty fun.
There is a reserve Tennessee infielder this year that has dealt with some injuries, that has barely played at all, that has thrown, I believe, 1 bullpen, and this was weeks ago. But he has never pitched, and he won't ever pitch. But it's funny you say that because that happened this year as well.
Yeah, exactly. You never know. That staff likes to do funky stuff every once in a while.
Clearly. All right, South Carolina series. What do you know about them? Some guys that have been around forever. It feels like Petrie. Ethan Petrie's a really good player. He's got 19 homers. You got Cole Messina. He's been there a while. Even Parker Nolan, played at Vanderbilt. He's been in this league for a long time. I don't want to call them desperate like Vanderbilt and Florida was the week before, but they're sitting at 13 and 14. They do need another win for sure to feel 100% okay. But a South Carolina team that's kind of limping into this series, getting swept by Georgia, starting pitching a little all over the place. What do you make of South Carolina? And then in turn for Tennessee, obviously you want to go out there and win every single game, but everything's kind of locked up before you. You're technically still playing for an SEC championship, don't get me wrong, but more so than anything, I feel like you just want to finish the right way. And sometimes that can come with some pressure.
Yeah, so I'll say kind of the opposite. In a series like this where you already have everything locked down, I think that what you said about finishing the right way is the most important thing. Like you'll take not a sweep if you lose in the right way, if that makes sense. You want to see the offense doing what it needs to do. And what I want to see out of this team is converting in situations where we have, runners at first and second, no outs, move the runners, driving them in, that kind of thing. If we're firing on all cylinders this weekend, that's all I want to see. But blasting long balls fun, getting hits when it matters is fun, but it's the little stuff that's going to win you tight ball games in the postseason that has been lacking at times this season. And that's what I really want to see out of this last weekend. Now, South Carolina itself, like you said, they got a few vets. Petrie's going to be their one really, really big hitter. You got power potential in Messina and Gavin Cassis too. Yeah. I do want to highlight I think it's either their Friday guy or Saturday guy. He got beat around by Georgia, which is fine because they're on some kind of streak right now. But he's got a really, really zippy fastball and a lot of potential to do some really, really good things, not for us, against us. So he's kind of a guy to keep your eye on. I can't remember.
Is it a guy that's pitched for them for a couple of years?
I think so. He might have been hurt last year or something, but I just saw him in a couple of outings, and I saw that fastball riding, just getting over barrel. So it's one of those guys that you got to keep your eye on. But they're gonna pitch it well. An under 5 ERA as a staff is always a good sign. And then their offense is going to do something. But like you said, they are itching for that coveted 14th win in the SEC. 15 is kind of the lock in 14 is teetering. So they're going to try to get one in this series. I hope we can stop it from getting it, but it's going to be a really tough fought battle. Them coming here, they've had less success as of late than they did, of course, in the earlier years. So they're just going to try to be looking for as many wins as they can get.
Yeah, and they've utilized openers like Tennessee has this year. I think the guy you're talking about, by the way, is Eli Jones. He's a guy that's made every weekend start. He's bounced from Friday, Saturday a little bit, but like Ron Kimball is a guy that's been opening for them. He's gotten torched the last couple of weeks, and they've taken their best bullpen arms and kind of started them. Like last weekend, Garrett Gainey made his first start of the season, went 5 1/3. Like he stretched out and did really well against Georgia. Game got away at the end, but like their pitching's been a little all over the place. But they have done a little openers like Tennessee has, and I really respect it. Like this year, man, like Frank and Tony, they've really pieced together like how to get 27 outs. It's you're ditching the traditional 1-2-3 starter like Beam, Doe, and Chase, Burns. It's opener here, long relief here, bridge guy here, and I feel like that will prepare this team better for postseason because truly in postseason it's every out's so big. So the fact that Tennessee's kind of been doing this on Fridays and Sundays, you got experience in kind of piecing those things together. I feel like it'll help Tennessee in postseason.
Yeah, and I think the main thing with that is that we have the pieces to do it. It seems like every one of our relievers can go 3+, just because they've been in that situation. There are a couple exceptions. But yeah, it's funky, and it's one of those things where it's almost like, why is there set starters? And it makes sense if you got big dogs like Beam, or honestly Snead and Causey could easily be starters. But why not throw someone in there who's a really good arm, see if they can't get you more, and then have a real shutdown, where the starter reliever, whatever, almost like the prequel to the sequel, won't get as tired on the back end, and can really like push it out, all that good stuff. But yeah, they're kind of, everyone's seeing it and they're like, hey, why don't we? I think LSU dabbled with it a couple of times, Georgia's dabbled, like all these SEC schools are like, hey, maybe this isn't a bad idea. So it's really cool to see that other teams following suit. But yeah, all of our relief pitchers have been showing that they can come in big situations and go for a really long time. They're all basically bridge relievers, or not bridge, but they're long relief pitchers, which is really cool to see that you don't have anyone in that one set role.
Yeah, I remember a couple of years ago. I mean, you're not reinventing the game here. I mean, a quote unquote opener has been a thing, since the 1800s. It's just not been very popular. It's not like it's brand new, but I remember like the Rays, or I think it was the Rays, maybe it was the A's. Somebody in Major League Baseball was like doing it hardcore, and I'm like, I hate that so much. But like you see it more and more now, and I'm like, well, with this team, it just makes so much sense, and they're doing well. Xander's doing well, Stamos is doing well, and of course, when you got the guys like Causey and Snead, you're afforded to do that, and of course, Beam in the middle too. So, yeah, should be a big weekend, man. I'm excited to see how Tennessee finishes this thing off. How difficult, and we'll probably have to talk first and next week before the SEC tournament, but how difficult is it to play that early game? Because I think if you win one, if my math's correct, if you win one this weekend, the worst you can be is a 3 seed. So you're either going to be a 3 seed or a 1 seed. But how difficult is that 9:30 local time start? Did you guys ever play in it?
Oh yeah. So the year we lost to Arkansas, we went back-to-back 9:30 starts. And so for us specifically, we get on away series, because that's what the tournament is. We get to the field. It would be an hour and a half-ish, maybe 2 hours before the start time of the game, just to do warm-ups, hitting the cage, fielding, blah, 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 and then sit around. And then you do, IO on the field. So it is a really, really early morning. And it's one of those things where you've done it before, but not necessarily in a baseball sense. The only thing that keeps you going is that means you have the rest of the day off. So you just have to focus up for, the 3 hours that you got to. You also beat the heat, which it can get really hot down in Hoover. You can hang out. Coach usually advises against watching games just because you don't want to sit in the sun and bake. But you can sit down in your hotel room, watch some games from there, take a nap, go down to Dave & Buster's or whatever. They're going to get the good hotel, and just do whatever you want. So, there's pros and cons. I say it is more of a con because you want to play not at 9:30 in the morning. But it's one of those things where you deal with it. And like you said, with the way Kentucky, if they lose this series, it'll basically guarantee us, well, hopefully, that number one seed. But also, it's kind of out of our control. So, they're going to do whatever they need to do to get it done, and it sucks if it does. But either way, we get to watch them at 10:30 Eastern or whatever it is, which is always fun.
So if Tennessee, I wrote these down. I think it was Saturday when Tennessee actually tied for the SEC lead. Anyway, if Tennessee and Kentucky finish, Tennessee owns the tiebreaker. If Tennessee and Arkansas finish tied, Tennessee owns that tiebreaker as well because they beat the series against Kentucky. That's like the highest seeded common opponent or whatever. It gets kind of wonky if like Tennessee, Arkansas, and A&M are tied, or Kentucky. It gets kind of wonky there. But if Tennessee and Kentucky are tied, Tennessee gets it. Tennessee and Arkansas are tied, Tennessee gets it. So,
and if I'm not mistaken, I think Arkansas and A&M are playing this weekend too.
I think you're right. I can easily look that up.
But
I think you're right. Should be interesting, man. It is never a dull moment in the SEC. Of course, you've got Tennessee baseball, of course, number 3. If you look at some of the field of 64 projections, number 2 in the SEC East, but number 1 it is Arkansas and A&M. I had to make sure it is Arkansas A&M this weekend. But Tennessee number 1 in the country, but a game back in the SEC East. So just a wild and wacky league. We'll see how Tennessee finishes this weekend, and of course we'll touch base before the SEC tournament and get your thoughts and strategies for that, and then on to regional play, man. It's been a fun year, and here's to hoping they finish the right way.
It is, and now the real tournament starts, so it's going to be a fun time for baseball.
Great stuff there as always from VFL Luke Lupcius, former Tennessee first baseman, getting you set for Tennessee and South Carolina. The regular season finale is here, this series, and of course we'll get you set for Hoover. All that and more Saturday night into Sunday, what Tennessee's seed is, what they're going to be locked into, what times they'll be looking at, what side of the bracket, all that and more. And I can't believe it's here. Postseason is right around the corner. Literally, this weekend's the corner. Right around it's postseason. I can't wait for that, and I know you can as well. See what the Tennessee team can do as it looks to make its way through Hoover, looks to make its way through regional, super regionals, and hopefully on into Omaha. So got to keep winning for that to be happening. Appreciate Luke, as always, for his respect that he brings onto the show. Big thank you to Spivey King and Spivey LLP for being the presenting sponsor of this show. You got a problem? Let them find a solution for you. T and Trial Lawyers, free consultation at 423-245-4185, 423-245-4185, or online at Spivey King and Spivey LLP. Guys, can't thank you enough. We'll get set for Tennessee and South Carolina. I'll have coverage for you all weekend long. But thanks so much for listening to us and watching us here on the Porch. It is a Volquest Baseball Podcast.